What if everything you've been taught about reality is backwards? What if you're not living in the universe, but the universe is living through you? Think about that for a moment. Right now, as you watch this video, you believe you're a person observing the world around you. But what if the truth is far more extraordinary? What if your consciousness isn't just witnessing reality, but actively weaving it into existence with every thought, every feeling, every moment of awareness? For centuries, ancient wisdom traditions have whispered a secret that modern science is only beginning to confirm. Reality isn't the solid, unchangeable structure we've been conditioned to believe it is. Instead, it's something far more fluid, far more responsive, and infinitely more magical than we ever imagined. The world you see around you isn't happening to you. It's happening from you. But before we dive deeper into this mind-bending truth, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, has this ever happened to you? You think about someone you haven't spoken to in years, and suddenly they call or message you out of nowhere. Or you've been wanting something specific, and opportunities related to it start appearing everywhere you look. Most people dismiss these as coincidences, but what if they're actually glimpses into how reality truly works? The law of attraction isn't some trendy self-help concept invented in the last few decades. It's the fundamental pulse of existence itself, an unseen rhythm that has been operating since the beginning of time, turning the invisible into the visible, transforming pure potential into physical form. Every culture, every mystical tradition, every ancient teaching has pointed to this. Same truth in different words. Thought precedes form, consciousness shapes matter, and awareness is the architect of experience. But here's where it gets really interesting. And stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely transform how you see yourself and your place in the cosmos. You see, consciousness isn't just in you. Consciousness is you. You're not a body that happens to have awareness. You're awareness itself, temporarily focused through the lens of a human experience. Think of the universe as an infinite ocean of consciousness, and you are one of its waves. You appear separate, distinct, individual, and in one sense, you are. But at a deeper level, you're made of the exact same substance as every other wave, connected to the entire ocean, never truly separate from it. This isn't poetic metaphor. This is the actual nature of reality that quantum physics is revealing and that mystics have known for millennia. Right now, in this very moment, you are consciousness folding in upon itself, the universe experiencing itself from your unique vantage point. And here's the part that changes everything. Here's the profound truth that most people never grasp. Your outer world isn't shaped by what you say you want, what you write in your journal, or what you visualize for 5 minutes each morning. Your reality is shaped by something far deeper, far more powerful, and operating beneath your conscious awareness every single moment. The I.C. universe functions as a perfect mirror, but it's not reflecting your wishes. It's reflecting your vibration, the electromagnetic signature of your deepest beliefs about yourself and what you deserve. Let me share something that illustrates this perfectly. There was a woman named Evelyn who spent years doing everything right according to every manifestation teaching she could find. She had vision boards covering her walls. She spoke affirmations into her bathroom mirror every morning. She repeated gratitude lists until her hand cramped. Yet nothing changed. Her finances stayed stuck. Her relationships remained unfulfilling. And that sense of purpose she desperately craved continued to elude her. The more effort she poured into trying to change her circumstances, the more frustrated she became. Then one morning, something unexpected happened. As she pressed her palms against her antique vanity mirror during her usual affirmation routine, a crack suddenly splintered across the glass. In that moment of apparent misfortune, a revelation struck her like lightning. The mirror wasn't broken. Her perception was. She had been trying to change her reflection without changing what stood before the mirror. She had been demanding that reality shift while she remained exactly the same internally. If this resonated with you, subscribe to this channel. The people who gather here are ready for the real work, the consciousness shift that changes everything. And if that's you, you belong here. This is the hidden truth that transforms everything. The universe doesn't care about your words. It responds to your energy, to the unconscious beliefs humming beneath the surface of your conscious desires. You can say you want abundance 1,000 times, but if your nervous system is wired for scarcity, if your heart carries the frequency of not enough, if your deep subconscious belief whispers that you're unworthy, that's what the mirror of reality will show you. Not because the universe is cruel, but because it's responding with absolute precision to what you actually are, not what you claim to want. Evelyn's transformation began when she stopped trying to force her external circumstances to change and started examining the fragmented beliefs she carried within. She realized that her morning affirmations were just noise covering up the constant internal dialogue of self-doubt and limitation. The moment she shifted her focus from manipulating outcomes to healing her internal state, everything began to shift. Not because she learned a new technique, but because she became someone different. And when you become someone different, the mirror has no choice but to reflect that new version back to you. Now, I want to go even deeper into this, because understanding the mirror principle is just the beginning of a much larger revelation about how consciousness actually operates in creating your lived experience. Write in the comments, I'm ready to see what the mirror shows, if this is resonating with you. What most people don't realize is that the universe doesn't speak English or Portuguese or any human language for that matter. It doesn't hear your carefully crafted affirmations or your desperate prayers whispered at 3 a.m. The universe operates on a completely different communication system. It reads energy, it responds to frequency, it listens to the music of your being. And here's the uncomfortable truth. When your words are singing one song while your emotional body is playing an entirely different melody, reality always responds to the louder frequency. Think about it this way. You can stand in front of a mirror and verbally declare, I am confident, I am powerful, I am worthy, with perfect articulation and conviction in your voice. But if your shoulders are slumped, if your eyes carry shame, if your entire nervous system is broadcasting the frequency of unworthiness, which signal do you think the mirror reflects back? The universe operates exactly like this. It's not listening to the words coming out of your mouth. It's tuning into the electromagnetic broadcast emanating from your heart, from your solar plexus, from the deep subconscious patterns running in the background of your awareness. Your emotions are far more than just feelings that come and go throughout your day. They are the strings of a cosmic instrument, and when they're plucked by your thoughts and beliefs, they send ripples through the fabric of reality itself. Every emotion you experience generates a specific frequency that broadcasts out into the quantum field like a radio signal. And just like a radio attracts stations that match its frequency, you attract experiences, people, and circumstances that match the dominant emotional signature you're emitting. This is why someone can do all the right manifestation techniques, say all the right things, follow all the steps perfectly, and still see no results. Because beneath the surface, their emotional frequency is telling a completely different story. Their words might proclaim abundance, but their heart is whispering scarcity. Their affirmations might declare love, but their emotional body is vibrating loneliness and fear of rejection. And the universe, in its perfect responsiveness, delivers experiences that match the authentic frequency, not the performed one. The real transformation begins when you stop trying to control your thoughts and start paying attention to your emotional state. Because your emotions are the truth teller, the unfiltered broadcast of what you genuinely believe about yourself and the world. When you feel anxious about money, that's not just a passing mood. That's a frequency being transmitted that magnetizes experiences of financial struggle. When you feel unworthy of love, that's not just low self-esteem. That's an energetic signature that repels genuine connection and attracts situations that confirm your unworthiness. The journey isn't about perfecting your vocabulary or memorizing better affirmations. It's about achieving alignment between what you say you want and what you genuinely feel you deserve. It's about tuning the instrument of your emotional body so that every string vibrates in harmony with your intentions. Because when that alignment happens, when your words and your feelings are broadcasting the same frequency, that's when reality has no choice but to reshape itself around your vision. Put down in the comments, frequency is everything, if you're beginning to see how this works. If this video created even a small shift in your awareness, hit that like button. It helps this message reach others who are ready to hear it. Here's what really changed everything for me, and it might shift your entire perspective on how reality actually works. Behind every spiritual teaching, every manifestation method, every ancient wisdom tradition, there's one fundamental principle that ties it all together. What you deeply recognize as real in your awareness must, by universal law, appear in your physical experience. Not what you hope is real, not what you wish were real, but what you genuinely, at the core of your being, accept as true. Your recognition is the creative act itself. Belief isn't just something you hold in your mind. It's the actual architecture that constructs the framework of your existence. This is why you can read 100 books on abundance and still live in scarcity. Because reading about prosperity doesn't mean you recognize it as real for you. You might recognize it as real for other people. You might intellectually understand the concepts. But if deep in your subconscious, there's a brick wall of recognition that says, people like me struggle with money, then struggle is what you'll experience. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the universe is perfectly responding to what you've recognized as true. Now here's where this gets really practical and immediately useful in your everyday life. You have a built-in navigation system that's constantly communicating with you about whether you're moving toward or away from what's genuinely aligned with your highest path. That system is your emotional body. Every single emotion you experience is divine intelligence speaking to you in the only language your body understands: sensation and feeling. When you feel joy, excitement, peace, expansion, these aren't random, pleasant experiences. They're confirmation signals telling you that whatever you're thinking about, moving toward, or experiencing in that moment is in harmony with your soul's authentic direction. It's the universe saying, yes, this way, keep going. Conversely, when anxiety shows up, when you feel contracted, heavy, resistant, this isn't punishment or evidence that something's wrong with you. It's a loving redirection, a gentle course correction from your inner guidance system letting you know you've drifted off course. Most people have been taught to override these signals, to push through discomfort, to ignore the tightness in their chest or the pit in their stomach. We've been conditioned to trust external authority over internal wisdom. But your emotions are incapable of lying to you. They bypass the mental gymnastics and the stories you tell yourself and deliver pure, unfiltered information about your alignment. The problem is, we've learned to misinterpret the messages. We think anxiety means we need to try harder, control more, fix something external. But usually it means we're forcing something that isn't meant for us, or we're moving from fear instead of authentic desire. The real transformation in manifestation happens when you start treating your emotions as sacred data rather than inconvenient feelings to be managed or suppressed. When you feel that expansion, that lightness, follow it, even if it doesn't make logical sense. When you feel that contraction, that heaviness, pause and ask what recognition or belief might be creating that frequency. Write, "I trust my inner compass," in the comments if you're ready to start listening to this wisdom that's been speaking to you all along. There's something I need to address because it's one of the biggest misconceptions that keeps people stuck in limitation. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that our desires are selfish, that wanting more is greedy, that yearning for something beyond our current circumstances is somehow spiritually immature or evidence of ingratitude. This belief has caused more suppression of human potential than almost anything else. Because here's the truth that changes everything. Your desires aren't random impulses that you conjured up out of thin air. They're not evidence of your ego run wild or proof that you're not enlightened enough. Your desires are the universe's way of speaking directly through you. When you feel that stirring in your soul, that magnetic pull towards something more, something different, something that doesn't yet exist in your current reality, that's not you being difficult or unrealistic. That's the eternal force of creation itself, seeking a new channel of expression, and it has chosen you as the vessel. The same intelligence that orchestrates galaxies and unfolds flowers is moving through your consciousness, planting specific dreams and visions that are perfectly matched to your unique configuration of gifts, experiences, and purpose. Think about a seed buried in dark soil. It doesn't question its longing for sunlight. It doesn't wonder if it's being greedy by wanting to break through the earth and reach toward the sky. That desire for light is hardwired into its very essence because it contains the complete blueprint of what it's destined to become. The oak tree is already encoded in the acorn. The rose is already present in the seed. And the longing that seed feels isn't separate from its destiny. It is the mechanism through which destiny unfolds. Your desires work exactly the same way. The yearning you feel for a different career, for deeper love, for creative expression, for financial freedom, for meaningful impact. These aren't arbitrary wishes. They're the seeds of your becoming, planted by the same universal intelligence that creates everything. The universe doesn't plant dreams in your heart to torture you or test your patience. It plants them there as a roadmap, as breadcrumbs leading you toward the fullest expression of what you came here to be. The tragedy is how many people spend their entire lives dismissing these inner callings as impractical, impossible, or inappropriate. They bury their desires under layers of should and shouldn't, cramming themselves into boxes that were never designed for them, all while wondering why life feels so heavy and unfulfilling. But when you understand that your desires are divine dialogue, that they're literally the universe communicating its intentions through your consciousness, everything shifts. You stop judging them and start honoring them. You stop suppressing them and start following them. Subscribe if you're ready to continue this journey of remembering. We go deeper with every video, exploring what most people never discover. Hit that subscribe button and join us. This doesn't mean every passing whim should be acted upon immediately without discernment. But those deep, persistent longings that keep returning no matter how many times you try to logic them away, those are not accidents. Those are invitations to step into a larger version of yourself, to become someone you haven't been before, to allow life to express through you in ways that are uniquely yours. Drop "My desires are sacred" in the comments if this is landing for you and you're ready to stop dismissing what your soul has been trying to tell you. Now here's the paradox that trips up almost everyone who starts working with these principles, and I see this constantly. Once people understand that their consciousness creates their reality, that their desires are divinely planted, that they have the power to shape their experience, the immediate impulse is to grab the steering wheel with white knuckles and try to micromanage every single detail of how their manifestations unfold. And ironically, that's precisely what blocks everything from flowing to them naturally. There's an old story about a fisherman who went out every morning with the same frustrating result. He would cast his net into the water and pull with all his might, fighting against the current, muscles straining, determination etched across his face. And day after day, his net came back empty. The harder he pulled, the more the fish scattered. His effort was actually creating the exact resistance that kept what he wanted just out of reach. Then one morning, exhausted from the struggle, he simply let go. He released his grip on the net and allowed it to drift with the natural current of the water. And in that moment of surrender, something remarkable happened. The net filled with fish, drawn to its gentle, flowing movement rather than repelled by his desperate force. This is the hidden mechanism that most manifestation teachings completely miss. When you try to control every step, every timeline, every detail of how your desires must arrive, you create what I call vibrational friction. You're essentially telling the universe, I don't trust you to handle this, so I need to manage it myself. And that lack of trust broadcasts a frequency that actually repels what you're trying to attract. Because underneath all that controlling behavior is fear. Fear that if you don't force it, it won't happen. Fear that the universe might forget about you or get it wrong. And that fear-based energy creates resistance in the flow. The truth that liberates you from this exhausting cycle is this: what you're seeking is also seeking you. Your desires aren't one-sided. The moment a genuine yearning plants itself in your heart, the universe begins orchestrating pathways for its fulfillment. But those pathways rarely look like what your limited human perspective thinks they should look like. The universe has access to connections, timing, and possibilities that your conscious mind could never strategize or predict. When you insist on controlling the how and the when, you close off all the unexpected routes through which your manifestation might arrive. Allowing isn't passive waiting or giving up. It's an active state of trust where you hold your vision clearly while remaining flexible about the delivery system. It's understanding that there's a vast intelligence coordinating circumstances in ways you can't see yet. Every time you feel yourself gripping, controlling, forcing, that's your cue to soften, to breathe, to remember that the current knows where it's going. The art of allowing is learning to move with life rather than against it, to partner with universal flow rather than trying to dominate it through sheer willpower. Type, I release control in the comments if you're ready to stop exhausting yourself with force and start flowing with the natural current that's been trying to carry you all along. What I'm about to share with you might sound simple, but it's one of the most powerful tools you possess, and most people completely underestimate it or dismiss it as childish daydreaming. Your imagination isn't some frivolous mental playground where you escape reality for a few minutes. It's actually the precise mechanism through which formless potential crosses the threshold into physical manifestation. When you engage your imagination with genuine feeling, you're not just creating pretty mental pictures, you're activating a creative interface between pure consciousness and the field of infinite possibility. Every single thing that exists in the physical world right now was once just imagination. The device you're watching this on, the chair you're sitting in, the building you're inside, all of it existed first as invisible thought before it became tangible matter. This isn't poetic exaggeration. It's the literal sequence of creation. The unseen always precedes the seen. And your imagination is the bridge that connects these two realms. There's a story that illustrates this perfectly. In an ancient city, there lived an architect named Hassan who had an unusual practice. While other architects would sketch their designs on paper and immediately move to construction, Hassan would spend months, sometimes years, living inside his creations mentally before a single stone was ever laid. Every night, he would close his eyes and walk through the palaces he envisioned. He would feel the cool smoothness of marble beneath his bare feet. He would hear the musical splash of fountains echoing through courtyards. He would sense the interplay of light and shadow as it filtered through the intricate window designs. He inhabited these spaces so completely in his imagination that they became more real to him than the physical room where his body rested. What happened next is the part that reveals how reality actually works. Years would pass, and travelers would begin arriving in distant lands, bringing stories of magnificent new buildings that had been constructed. Buildings that matched, stone for stone, detail for detail. The palaces Hassan had built first in the architecture of Qi. His mind. The physical structures manifested in various locations, created by different hands, yet bearing the unmistakable signature of Hassan's inner visions. He had proven something profound. When you hold an image clearly in consciousness with sustained emotional investment, the physical world has no choice but to eventually reflect that template back to you. But here's the key distinction most people miss. Hassan wasn't casually daydreaming. He was feeling his way into the experience. He wasn't just visualizing marble. He was sensing its texture, its temperature, its weight. He wasn't just imagining fountains. He was hearing their rhythm, feeling the mist on his skin. He engaged all his inner senses to make the experience vivid and real in his consciousness. Because the universe doesn't respond to vague mental pictures. It responds to the feeling state you generate, to the degree of reality you assign to your inner visions. Your imagination combined with emotion is the most potent creative force available to you. It's how you impress the quantum field with your desired outcomes. Put "I create with my imagination" in the comments if you're starting to see how this invisible blueprint process actually works in your own life. Now let me address something that might make you uncomfortable, but it needs to be said because so many people are doing gratitude completely wrong and then wondering why it's not working. You've probably been told 1,000 times to keep a gratitude journal, to write down 5 things you're thankful for every morning, to force yourself to feel appreciative even when everything feels like it's falling apart. And maybe you've done exactly that, dutifully listing your blessings while your heart feels like lead, checking off your spiritual to-do list while experiencing absolutely zero shift in your actual reality. Here's why. Gratitude that's commanded, manufactured, or performed as a technique is just another form of resistance, disguised as spirituality. True appreciation cannot be forced. It's not something you do. It's something that flows naturally from your being when you're genuinely connected to the present moment. And when authentic gratitude springs from that place of real recognition, it becomes one of the most magnetic forces in the universe, literally multiplying the essence of whatever you're truly appreciating. The difference between mechanical gratitude and genuine appreciation is like the difference between reciting "I love you" because you're supposed to versus feeling that rush of warmth in your chest when you look at someone who genuinely moves your heart. One is hollow words, the other is pure frequency, and the universe only responds to frequency. You can write in your journal every single day, "I'm grateful for abundance," while your entire nervous system is broadcasting lack and anxiety. That gratitude list isn't fooling anyone, least of all the intelligence that orchestrates reality, based on your authentic vibration. Real gratitude happens when you pause and actually let yourself feel appreciation for something small and present. The warmth of sunlight touching your skin, the fact that your lungs are breathing without you having to think about it, the simple miracle that you exist at all in this vast cosmos. When you drop into genuine appreciation for what is, something shifts in your energy field. You stop vibrating from a place of not enough and start resonating with sufficiency. And that shift in resonance is what magnetizes more experiences worth appreciating. This is why people who authentically appreciate what they have, not as a spiritual bypass or toxic positivity, but as a genuine recognition of value, tend to attract more abundance. Not because they're performing gratitude correctly, but because their frequency naturally aligns with abundance consciousness. They're not coming from lack trying to manipulate their way into more. They're coming from fullness, and fullness attracts more fullness. It's not magic, it's the physics of consciousness. The transformation happens when you stop treating gratitude like a manifestation technique you need to master and start allowing it to be the natural overflow of present moment awareness. When appreciation arises spontaneously because you're actually paying attention to the gift of existence itself, that's when it becomes a creative force. That's when it stops being work and becomes the doorway to experiencing reality from an entirely different frequency. Write "Gratitude is my frequency" in the comments if you're ready to let go of forced appreciation and drop into the real thing. Something extraordinary happens when you start paying attention to the subtle patterns in your life. And I want you to notice this starting today. Those moments you've been dismissing as random coincidence, running into exactly the right person at exactly the right time, thinking of someone seconds before they call, stumbling across the perfect solution right when you needed it most. These aren't accidents. They're synchronicities, evidence of an invisible intelligence constantly responding to your energy and orchestrating circumstances in your favor. The universe is always working behind the scenes on your behalf. Divine orchestration doesn't pause and wait for you to believe in it before it functions, just like gravity doesn't stop operating because you're skeptical. But here's what changes when you start acknowledging this unseen support. You shift from feeling like you're fighting through life alone to recognizing yourself as a participant in a vast, intelligent dance. And that recognition allows you to consciously partner with forces that have been trying to help you all along. Think about a kite flying high in the sky. The kite cannot see the wind. It has no way to measure it, no ability to prove its existence through physical evidence. Yet the kite doesn't spend its time questioning whether the wind is real or demanding to understand how air currents work before it allows itself to fly. It simply responds to the invisible force, adjusting its position, working with the current rather than against it. And through that cooperation, it achieves something it could never accomplish through its own effort alone. It soars. You are that kite, and there are invisible currents of universal intelligence moving through your life constantly. Most people fight against these currents because they can't see them, can't control them, can't fit them into their rigid plans for how life should unfold. They exhaust themselves trying to force outcomes through sheer willpower, never realizing that if they would just stop resisting, stop demanding that everything happen according to their limited perspective, they would discover that the current was always carrying them exactly where they needed to go. This isn't about passivity or giving up your power. It's about understanding that you're part of something infinitely larger and more intelligent than your individual consciousness. When you stop fighting the wind and start dancing with it, when you release your insistence that you must orchestrate every detail yourself, you tap into a level of support that makes life feel less like struggle and more like flow. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Solutions appear from completely unexpected directions. People show up at precisely the moment you need them. The shift happens when you start interpreting these synchronicities not as lucky breaks, but as confirmation that you're aligned with something vast and benevolent. When you see the patterns, when you notice the invisible hand at work, you begin to trust it more deeply. And that trust allows you to relax your grip, to move with more grace, to let yourself be carried by currents you don't need to understand in order to benefit from. Drop "I trust the invisible currents" in the comments if you're ready to stop exhausting yourself with resistance and start flowing with the support that's been here all along. Here's something that might completely shift how you see every relationship, every opportunity, every experience in your life. The most important relationship you'll ever have isn't with your partner, your family, your friends, or your career. It's the relationship you have with yourself, because that internal relationship creates the energetic template that every other aspect of your reality must follow. When you genuinely honor your own worth, when you speak to yourself with kindness, when you trust your own intuition and respect your own boundaries, the world has no choice but to mirror that back to you. And conversely, when you dismiss your own light, when you override your needs, when you treat yourself as less than, reality will echo that diminishment in every corner of your experience. Most people have this backwards. They're waiting for the world to treat them better before they'll treat themselves better. They're waiting for someone else to validate their worth before they'll acknowledge it themselves. They're waiting for external circumstances to improve before they'll soften their internal dialogue. But that's not how the mirror works. The external world doesn't lead. It follows. It reflects. It responds to the frequency you're already broadcasting from within. Think about two tuning forks sitting on a table. When you strike one, something fascinating happens. Without any physical contact, the second fork begins to vibrate and hum at the exact same frequency. This isn't magic or coincidence, it's resonance. It's the physical law that states matching frequencies will activate each other. And this same principle governs your entire reality. The frequency you hold within yourself, the tone of your self-talk, the quality of your self-regard, the depth of your self-trust, sends out a vibration that the world around you must match. If your internal frequency is self-criticism, the world will bring you people and situations that criticize you. If your internal tone is unworthiness, opportunities will pass you by as if you're invisible. If your dominant vibration is self-doubt, circumstances will repeatedly confirm that doubt. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because it's perfectly reflecting the signal you're transmitting. You cannot broadcast one frequency internally and expect to receive a different one externally. That's not how resonance works. This is why affirmations alone rarely create lasting change. You can stand in front of a mirror and say, "I am worthy," 1,000 times. But if your internal tuning fork is still vibrating unworthiness, if you're still accepting treatment that dishonors you, if you're still betraying yourself to please others, if you're still speaking to yourself with contempt, that's the frequency the world will match. The words don't matter. The vibration is everything. The transformation begins when you realize that changing your external reality requires changing your internal relationship first. When you start treating yourself the way you want the world to treat you. When you start honoring yourself the way you want to be honored. When you start trusting yourself the way you want to be trusted. That shift in your internal frequency automatically shifts what resonates back to you from the world. Type, "I am my own template," if you're recognizing how your self-relationship has been creating your reality all along. There's a paradox in manifestation that almost everyone struggles with, and it's probably costing you more than you realize. The harder you chase after what you want, the faster it seems to run away from you. The more desperately you try to force things into being, the more they resist materializing. You've probably experienced this yourself. That relationship you pursued too intensely that dissolved under the pressure, that job opportunity you grasped at too eagerly that slipped through your fingers, that financial breakthrough you strained toward that somehow stayed perpetually out of reach. And in those moments, it feels like the universe is playing some cruel game, dangling what you want just beyond your grasp while you exhaust yourself trying to bridge the gap. But here's what's actually happening. Abundance, prosperity, love, success, all of these things flow like water, and water always, always moves through the path of least resistance. When you're in a state of desperate chasing, of forceful striving, of anxious grasping, you create energetic dams and blockages that interrupt the natural flow. Your desperation itself becomes the obstacle. Not because you want it too much, but because the quality of energy behind that wanting is constricted, tight, coming from a place of lack rather than magnetic receptivity. Your role in this creative dance isn't to make things happen through sheer force of will. It's to maintain the vibrational frequency that naturally attracts what you desire, and then allow it to come to you through whatever pathway offers the least resistance. Sometimes that pathway looks nothing like what you imagined. Sometimes it arrives through a series of events that make no logical sense. Sometimes it shows up in a completely different form than you expected. But it can only arrive when you create space for it by releasing your death grip on how and when it must appear. There's an old teaching story that illustrates this perfectly. A monk spent years standing before a massive door in an ancient temple, pushing against it with all his strength every single day. His shoulders grew powerful from the effort. His determination became legendary. Other monks would pass by and admire his dedication, his refusal to give up, despite years of apparent failure. The door never budged. Then one day, absolutely exhausted, the monk simply leaned against the door in a moment of complete surrender. And it opened effortlessly, swinging inward on well-oiled hinges. He had been pushing for years against a door that was designed to be pulled. All that force, all that struggle, had been moving in exactly the wrong direction. This is what most people are doing with their manifestations. They're pushing with tremendous force against doors that need to be approached with gentle allowing. They're trying to muscle their way into outcomes that require finesse and trust. They're straining against the natural movement of life instead of partnering with it. And then they conclude that manifestation doesn't work, or that they're not worthy, or that the universe has forgotten them, when really They've just been pushing when they needed to pull, forcing when they needed to allow. The shift happens when you recognize that aligned action feels completely different from forced action. Aligned action has a quality of ease to it, even when it's challenging. There's a sense of flow, of rightness, of doors opening rather than being battered down. Forced action, on the other hand, feels like swimming against a powerful current, exhausting, frustrating, ultimately unsustainable. And the universe is constantly giving you feedback about which one you're engaged in through how things feel in your body and how easily circumstances are unfolding. Write, "I choose aligned action," in the comments if you're ready to stop exhausting yourself with force and start moving with the natural intelligence that knows exactly how to bring your desires to fruition. Let me share something that completely changed my approach to manifestation, and I wish someone had told me this years ago. Most people spend enormous amounts of energy getting the details of their vision exactly right. They create elaborate vision boards with specific cars, exact house layouts, particular job titles, precise dollar amounts. They obsess over the architectural blueprints of their desired reality meticulously, planning every specification. But here's what they're missing. The universe doesn't respond to the details of your mental blueprint. It responds to the emotional frequency underneath those details. Your emotions are the actual raw material of creation, and they shape your reality long before any physical circumstances have a chance to align. Think about it this way. You can visualize a specific house with perfect clarity. Every room, every piece of furniture, every view from every window. But if the emotional signature underneath that visualization is anxiety about whether you can afford it, fear that you'll never be worthy of it, or desperation because you hate where you currently live, then you're not broadcasting the frequency of beautiful home. You're broadcasting the frequency of lack, fear, and unworthiness. And that's what the universe receives and reflects back to you. The pictures in your mind are just the wrapping paper. The emotion is the actual gift you're sending out into the quantum field. This is why two people can use identical manifestation techniques and get completely different results. One person visualizes their dream life from a place of excited anticipation, genuine appreciation for what's unfolding, trust in the process. The other person visualizes the exact same dream from a place of desperate need, anxious grasping, fearful, what if it doesn't work? Same technique, opposite outcomes. Because the technique isn't what creates. The emotional vibration is what creates. You could have the blurriest, least detailed vision imaginable, but if the feeling tone underneath it is expansive, joyful, and trusting, you'll manifest experiences that match that frequency. The specifics might surprise you, but the essence will be exactly what you were vibrating. Now here's where this connects to something most people fundamentally misunderstand about how fortune actually works. You've probably looked at certain people and thought they're just lucky. They seem to be in the right place at the right time. Opportunities fall into their laps, doors open for them that stay closed for everyone else. And it's easy to dismiss this as random chance, as some people just being blessed by fate while others struggle. But that's not what's happening at all. What you're calling luck is actually the visible result of invisible alignment. Fortune isn't a lottery where some win and others lose based on random selection. It's the precise meeting point between your internal conviction and your external preparation. Those lucky people aren't receiving special treatment from the universe. They've cultivated an internal frequency of expectation and readiness that causes them to notice opportunities others miss, to act on openings others hesitate at, to be positioned exactly where they need to be when circumstances converge. Their inner world is vibrating at a frequency that magnetizes fortunate circumstances, and their outer actions are prepared to receive what shows up. To someone who doesn't understand how this works, it looks like magic or unfair advantage. But to those who grasp the mechanics of consciousness, it's obvious. These people have aligned their emotional vibration with the outcome they desire, and they've taken practical steps in the physical world that create pathways for manifestation to flow through. They're not waiting passively for luck to strike. They're actively generating the conditions, both energetically and practically, that allow fortune to find them. Put "I create my own fortune" in the comments if you're beginning to see how what looks like luck from the outside is actually precise alignment from the inside. There's an ancient story that perfectly illustrates what I'm talking about, and it's about a farmer named Tao who understood something his neighbors didn't. During a severe drought, all the farmers in the valley gathered to pray for rain. They stood in their fields, hands raised to the sky, pleading with the heavens to send water. And Tao prayed too. But then he did something different. While everyone else went home to wait for their prayers to be answered, Tao went to work. He dug irrigation channels throughout his land. He enriched his soil with nutrients. He prepared his fields as if the rain was already on its way. His neighbors thought he was wasting his time and energy. Why prepare for rain that might never come? Why not just wait and see what happens like everyone else? Then the rains finally arrived. And here's what happened. Tao's prepared land absorbed every single precious drop of water. His irrigation channels directed the flow exactly where it needed to go. His enriched soil drank deeply, nourishing the seeds he'd already planted. Meanwhile, his neighbors watched helplessly as the rain they'd prayed for ran off their hardened, unprepared ground, creating muddy rivers that carried the blessing right past their fields and into the valley. Below, same rain, same divine answer to prayer. Completely different outcomes based entirely on preparation. This is the piece that gets left out of almost every manifestation conversation. People think spiritual practices and energetic alignment are enough by themselves. They visualize, they affirm, they raise their vibration, and then they sit back, passively waiting for the universe to deliver. But manifestation requires both the invisible work of consciousness and the visible work of preparation. You need to be doing the internal alignment while simultaneously creating the channels in your physical reality through which your manifestations can flow. Otherwise, when your blessing finally shows up, you won't have the capacity to receive it. Now here's the part that tests everyone's patience, and it's where most people give up right before their breakthrough. Manifestation doesn't operate on your preferred timeline. It follows a natural rhythm of spiritual ripening that you cannot rush, control, or bypass through sheer force of will. Just like an apple tree goes through specific stages of growth before it produces fruit, the seed must germinate, roots must establish, branches must form, blossoms must appear. Your desires move through invisible stages of development before they can materialize in physical form. You might be doing everything right, holding the perfect frequency, taking aligned action, preparing your channels, and still not seeing results yet. And in those moments, it's easy to conclude that something's broken, that you're doing it wrong, that the universe has forgotten about you. But what's actually happening is that your manifestation is in the developmental stage. Your vibration is maturing to match the frequency of what you desire. The quantum field is orchestrating circumstances you can't see yet. The tree is growing roots beneath the soil, where you can't observe the progress. The apple tree doesn't strain or stress during this process. It doesn't question whether fruit will eventually come. It simply continues being a tree, drawing nutrients from the soil, reaching toward the sun, trusting the intelligence of its own nature. And when the internal conditions are fully aligned, when the tree has completed its necessary growth cycle, the fruit appears naturally, effortlessly, right on time. Your manifestations work exactly the same way. They're not delayed because the universe is withholding them. They're developing, according to a rhythm that's actually perfect, even when it doesn't match your impatient human timeline. The transformation in your manifestation practice happens when you stop treating timing as the enemy and start trusting it as part of the intelligent design. When you can hold your vision while simultaneously surrendering your attachment to when it must appear. When you keep preparing your fields, even when you can't see the rain clouds yet. Type, "I trust divine timing" in the comments if you're ready to release the anxiety of forcing your timeline and allow things to ripen at their natural pace. Let me tell you about a baker who thought he'd discovered a shortcut to success. He reasoned that if his bread needed 1 hour to bake at a certain temperature, surely he could cut that time in half by doubling the heat of his ovens. Makes perfect sense, right? More heat equals faster results. So he cranked up the temperature and confidently placed his dough inside, expecting to revolutionize the entire baking industry with his brilliant innovation. What emerged was a disaster. Loaves with charred, blackened exteriors and centers that were still completely raw and inedible. He hadn't sped up the baking process. He'd destroyed it entirely by trying to bypass the natural timing required for proper development. This is exactly what most people are doing with their manifestations, and it's sabotaging them without them even realizing it. Impatience isn't just an uncomfortable feeling you need to manage. It's actually a symptom of something deeper. It's doubt disguised as urgency. When you're frantically trying to speed things up, when you're anxiously checking for results every 5 minutes, when you're desperately attempting to force outcomes to appear faster, what you're really broadcasting is, I don't trust that this is actually going to happen. And that doubt, that lack of trust in the perfect orchestration of the universe, creates interference in the very process you're trying to accelerate. The universe operates with impeccable precision. It's coordinating circumstances involving countless variables you can't even see, other people's timelines, technological developments, your own internal readiness, synchronicities that need to align. When you try to rush this process because you don't trust it, you're like the baker cranking up the heat. You're not helping. You're actually introducing chaos into a system that was working perfectly at its own natural pace. The bread knows how long it needs. Your manifestation knows when it's ready. Your job isn't to microwave what needs to slow bake. Now here's something that's going to completely reframe how you see obstacles and setbacks, because this might be the most misunderstood aspect of the entire manifestation journey. When things don't go according to plan, when you encounter resistance, when doors slam shut in your face, when circumstances seem to be moving in the opposite direction of your desires, your immediate interpretation is probably that something's gone wrong, that you've failed, that the universe is blocking you, that maybe this just isn't meant for you after all. But what if I told you that these apparent obstacles are actually the universe's way of refining your manifestation into something far better than your original vision? Every time you encounter what you don't want, something extraordinary happens in your consciousness. Your understanding of what you do want becomes sharper, clearer, more refined. It's like a sculptor working with marble. The chisel strikes that remove unwanted stone aren't destroying the sculpture. They're revealing it with greater precision. Each no you receive, each closed door, each disappointment acts as contrast that helps you define your true desire with laser-like clarity. Before you experienced that terrible job, you might have had only a vague sense of wanting good work. But after living through what you definitely don't want, suddenly you know exactly what qualities matter to you in a workplace. That contrast wasn't punishment. It was clarification. The alchemy of contrast is one of the universe's most sophisticated tools for ensuring you don't just get what you asked for, but what you actually need in its most refined form. Those obstacles you've been resenting, those detours you've been cursing, those failures you've been hiding from, they've all been secretly upgrading your manifestation, removing impurities from your vision, crystallizing your desires into their truest expression. Write, "Obstacles refine me," in the comments if you're starting to see your past challenges through this new lens. There's a profound truth hidden in the way master sculptors work with stone, and it completely transforms how you understand resistance in your own life. When a sculptor approaches a block of marble, they don't see the stone as their enemy or obstacle. They see it as a collaborator in the creative process. The resistance of the marble, its hardness, the way it refuses to yield easily, all of this actually guides the sculptor's hands toward discovering the figure that was always waiting inside. If the stone were soft and pliable like clay, the sculptor could force it into any arbitrary shape. But because marble resists, because it pushes back, it demands that the artist listen more carefully, move more precisely, understand more deeply what wants to emerge. This is exactly what's happening with the resistance you encounter in your manifestation journey. That relationship that ended wasn't random cruelty. It taught you what you absolutely need in partnership and what you'll never tolerate again. That business venture that failed wasn't wasted time. It revealed skills you needed to develop and blind spots you needed to address before you were ready for real success. That door that slammed shut wasn't the universe saying no to your dreams. It was life, saying, "Not this way, there's a better path." Every no you've received has been secretly steering you toward a yes that's so perfectly aligned with your true nature that you'll look back and be grateful for every detour. The sculptor doesn't curse the marble's resistance. They use it as information, as feedback, as a teaching force that reveals what's possible. When you start relating to life's resistance this way, everything shifts. You stop seeing obstacles as evidence of failure and start recognizing them as the universe's precision tools, carving away everything that isn't aligned with your highest manifestation. Each rejection is removing what wasn't meant for you. Each delay is allowing you to become ready for what is. Each challenge is strengthening the exact qualities you'll need when your desire finally arrives. Now I want to go even deeper into something that might challenge your entire worldview. But stay with me because this is where the real transformation happens. Nothing in your life is happening by accident. Not the painful experiences, not the difficult people, not the recurring patterns that seem to follow you no matter where you go or how hard you try to escape them. These aren't random misfortunes or cosmic punishment. They're the result of invisible agreements your soul made before you even entered this physical experience. Contracts designed specifically to catalyze your growth and evolution. I know this sounds esoteric, but think about the patterns in your life. Maybe you keep attracting the same type of unavailable partner in different bodies. Maybe you repeatedly end up in work environments where you're undervalued. Maybe financial struggle shows up over and over despite your best efforts. These recurring themes aren't happening because you're cursed or broken. They're persisting because at a soul level you agreed to work through these specific lessons. And they'll keep showing up, sometimes with increasing intensity, until you finally become conscious of the pattern and make a different choice. This is actually empowering news, not depressing. Because once you recognize that these patterns exist through agreement rather than by accident, you realize you have the power to renegotiate the contract. You're not a victim of circumstances. You're a participant in your own evolution. And the moment you become aware of what you've been unconsciously agreeing to, you can consciously choose something different. The pattern only has power while it's invisible. The second you shine the light of awareness on it, you're no longer bound by it. You can say, "I see this pattern. I understand what it's been trying to teach me. And I'm now choosing a new agreement that serves my highest growth." Put "I choose new agreements" in the comments if you're recognizing patterns in your life that are ready to be renegotiated. Let me address something that causes more suffering and limitation than almost anything else, and it's your relationship with money. Most people relate to money as if it's a scarce resource they need to fight for, hoard, or anxiously protect. They grip it with fear, spend it with guilt, and pursue it with desperation. And then they wonder why it seems to slip through their fingers or avoid them entirely. But here's the truth that changes everything. Money isn't actually a thing. It's energy in motion. And like all energy, it responds not to your words or your actions, but to the vibrational frequency of your deepest beliefs about worthiness and abundance. Think about a river flowing through a landscape. When someone approaches that river with appreciation, with open hands ready to receive, the water flows generously into their vessel. But when someone approaches with clenched fists, with fear that there won't be enough, with guilt about taking what they need, the river can't flow into closed hands. Money operates exactly the same way. It's a current of energy that wants to circulate, to move, to flow through your life. But your beliefs about scarcity, your feelings of unworthiness, your anxiety about never having enough, these create energetic dams that block the natural flow of prosperity. Prosperity actually delights in being recognized and appreciated. When you can genuinely feel gratitude for money as it flows to you and through you, when you can bless it as it leaves your hands, knowing more is always coming, when you can receive it without guilt and release it without fear, you open the channels for abundance to move through your life with ease. But when you clutch it with desperation or reject it with shame, you create resistance in the very circulation that could sustain you. Your relationship with money is revealing your relationship with receiving, with worthiness, with trusting that the universe is fundamentally abundant rather than scarce. And this brings me to relationships, because the same principle applies here with even more intensity. I'm going to say something that might sting a little, but it's important. You don't attract what you want in relationships. You attract what you vibrate. You can consciously desire a partner who's emotionally available, communicative, and trustworthy. But if your unconscious frequency is still resonating with abandonment wounds, if your nervous system is wired for unavailability, if your deepest beliefs whisper that you're not worthy of real love, you will magnetize people who match that frequency, not your conscious preferences. This is why the same patterns keep showing up in different relationships. You think you're choosing different people, but you're actually choosing the same energetic signature in different packaging. Because like attracts like at the frequency level, wound calls to wound. Unhealed trauma recognizes itself across a crowded room and sparks instant chemistry. That intense attraction you feel to someone who ultimately hurts you, that's not soulmate recognition. That's frequency matching with your unresolved pain. Conversely, healing calls to healing. Self-love attracts self-love. Inner peace magnetizes peaceful partnership. When you genuinely transform your internal frequency, when you actually heal the wounds rather than just understanding them intellectually, your external relationships have no choice but to shift and reflect that new vibration. The people in your life right now are perfect mirrors showing you exactly what frequency you're broadcasting. If you're surrounded by criticism, look at how you criticize yourself. If you're experiencing betrayal, examine where you betray your own needs and boundaries. If you're feeling unseen, notice where you're invisible to yourself. This isn't about blame. It's about recognizing that your external relationships are always matching your internal relationship with yourself at the energetic level. Type, "I am the frequency I seek" in the comments if this is landing and you're ready to take responsibility for the resonance you're creating. Here's something that might surprise you about how manifestation actually works. And it's the opposite of what most people assume. You don't need to maintain this intense, high-vibration emotional state 24 hours a day. You don't need to force yourself into peak excitement every single morning. You don't need those dramatic bursts of passionate belief that leave you exhausted by noon. Because the universe doesn't respond to the intensity of your vibration. It responds to the consistency of it. Think of a lighthouse standing on a rocky shore. It doesn't blast the brightest possible light in random intervals, creating moments of blinding brilliance followed by complete darkness. That erratic pattern would confuse ships and send them crashing into the rocks. Instead, the lighthouse maintains a steady, reliable beam that burns consistently through fog, storm, and calm alike. And that consistency is what guides vessels safely home. Your belief system works exactly the same way. It's not the moments of peak conviction that create your reality. It's the baseline frequency you maintain day after day, the steady hum of expectation that runs beneath your conscious awareness. You could have the most powerful visualization session of your life on Sunday, feeling absolutely certain your desire is on its way, vibrating pure confidence and trust. But if Monday through Saturday you're back to doubt, worry, and it's probably not going to happen anyway, then that Sunday session means nothing. The universe reads your average frequency, not your peak moments. It responds to what you consistently believe when you're not actively trying to manifest, when you're just going about your normal day, when your guard is down and your true baseline reveals itself. This is why some people seem to manifest effortlessly without doing any techniques at all, while others work hard at every method and see minimal results. The effortless? Manifestors have a steady baseline of trust and expectation. They don't spike into intense belief and crash into doubt. They maintain a calm, consistent frequency of course good things come to me, that operates like that lighthouse beam, unwavering and reliable. And the universe, reading that consistent signal, delivers consistent results. So instead of trying to amp up your intensity, focus on cultivating steadiness. Gentle, unwavering trust is infinitely more powerful than explosive hope, followed by crushing doubt. Now let me share something that will completely transform how you approach every single moment of your life. The quantum field of infinite possibility exists right now. Not tomorrow, not after you finish your morning routine, not when conditions are perfect. Right now, in this exact moment, you have access to every potential reality, every possible version of your future, every manifestation you've ever desired. But here's the catch. That field only collapses into physical form through your present moment awareness. Your power to shape reality doesn't exist in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's anxieties. It exists solely in this breath, this instant, this now. Most people are never actually present. They're mentally living in a past that's already gone or a future that hasn't arrived yet, completely missing the only moment where creation actually happens. You're sitting here right now, but your mind is probably thinking about what you need to do later, worrying about something that happened yesterday, planning for next week. And while you're lost in those mental time travels, the present moment, the only moment where you can actually influence reality, is passing you by completely unused. Creation doesn't happen in the past or future. It happens now, every single time. And if you're not here now, you're not creating. You're just recycling old patterns and projecting old frequencies into a future that will look exactly like your past, because you're not present enough to introduce anything new. Write "I choose presence" in the comments if you're recognizing how much of your creative power you've been missing by not being fully here, right now, in this moment. There's a story that perfectly illustrates why so many people stay stuck despite doing all the right spiritual practices, and it's about two neighbors with very different approaches to gardening. Samuel had grand visions of a magnificent garden. He could see it perfectly in his mind. Abundant vegetables, colorful flowers, thriving plants everywhere. So he prepared his plot, turned the soil, and then stood back waiting. He'd peek at the earth every morning, looking for signs of growth, checking for sprouts. But he wouldn't water the bare soil. He wouldn't bless the empty ground. He wouldn't tend to what looked like nothing. Why waste my time and resources on dirt, he reasoned. I'll start taking care of it once I see something growing, once there's proof this is actually working. And day after day, week after week, his garden remained barren, the soil hardening under the sun, never receiving the care needed for life to emerge. Meanwhile, his neighbor Sophia approached her garden completely differently. She would go out each morning and bless the empty earth as if it already held the seeds of her future harvest. She watered soil that showed no visible signs of life. She spoke to the ground with appreciation. She tended the nothingness with the same devotion she would give to a flourishing garden. To Samuel, she looked foolish, caring for what didn't yet exist. But within weeks, Sophia's garden exploded with life while Samuel's plot remained stubbornly bare. The difference wasn't in their visions or their techniques. It was in their willingness to honor the present moment, to give their full attention and care to what is, rather than withholding everything until the future proved itself worthy. This is exactly what most people do with their entire lives. They withhold love until someone proves they deserve it. They withhold their full effort until a job shows it's going somewhere. They withhold presence until circumstances become perfect. And in that withholding, they starve the very soil from which their dreams could grow. Life doesn't respond to your future dreams. It responds to your present attention. What you bless with your awareness right now, what you tend with care in this moment, that's what flourishes. Not someday, now. But here's where we need to go even deeper, because there's a fundamental misunderstanding about who's actually doing the manifesting, and clearing this up changes absolutely everything. You've been operating under the assumption that you're a separate individual trying to get the universe to give you things. Like you're here, and the universe is there, and you need to learn the right techniques to bridge that gap and convince this external force to deliver your desires. But that's not how any of this actually works. You're not separate from the universal mind. You are its localized expression. You're not petitioning an outside power. You are that power, experiencing itself through the unique lens of your individual consciousness. Think about a wave in the ocean. The wave appears to be a distinct, separate thing. It has its own shape, its own movement, its own momentary existence. And if that wave could think, it might believe itself to be separate from the ocean, trying to attract more. Water to itself, striving to become bigger or more impressive. But the truth is, the wave is made entirely of ocean. It's not separate from the source. It is the source, temporarily expressing in wave form. You are that wave, and consciousness is the ocean. When you manifest, you're not you convincing the universe to give you something. Your consciousness experiencing itself, creating through itself, discovering itself through your unique perspective. You are simultaneously the dreamer and the dream, the creator and the creation, the wave and the ocean. Put "I am consciousness experiencing itself" in the comments if this truth is starting to dissolve the illusion of separation you've been carrying. When you finally understand what I just shared about being consciousness experiencing itself, a profound paradox emerges that resolves one of the biggest struggles in manifestation. If you're the ocean temporarily expressing as a wave, if you're already the creative force rather than separate from it, then why does manifestation sometimes feel like such exhausting work? Why are you straining and struggling and pushing so hard if you're already the power itself? And the answer reveals something that will completely shift how you approach everything in your life. True power doesn't come from pushing against life's current. It comes from recognizing the current, aligning with it, and allowing it to carry you where you're meant to go. Think about a skilled sailor navigating the open sea. The wind is going to blow regardless of what the captain wants. The currents are going to move according to their own natural patterns. A foolish captain tries to fight these forces, exhausting the crew and making minimal progress. But a wise captain doesn't fight the wind. Instead, they adjust their sails to work in partnership with it. They read the currents and position the vessel to be carried by them. Same ocean, same wind, completely different outcomes based entirely on whether you're fighting or flowing. Every moment you spend forcing, controlling, manipulating, and struggling is a moment you're fighting against universal currents that are actually trying to help you. The resistance you feel isn't because life is against you. It's because you're moving against life. And the exhaustion that comes from that isn't evidence that manifestation is hard. It's feedback that you're approaching it incorrectly. When you're truly aligned, there's a quality of ease even when the work is challenging. Things flow. Doors open. Synchronicities appear. You're being carried by forces much larger than your individual effort, and your role shifts from making things happen to allowing them to happen through you. This brings me to something that might initially feel uncomfortable, but is absolutely essential to understand. The people who challenge you the most, who trigger you, who seem to oppose you at every turn, these aren't random antagonists placed in your path to make life difficult. They're actually your greatest teachers, showing up in disguise to reveal exactly what still needs healing within you. Every person who creates resistance in your experience is holding up a mirror, reflecting back the unresolved aspects of your own consciousness that are asking for your attention and integration. That coworker who constantly undermines you, they're showing you where you undermine yourself. That family member who never seems satisfied with anything you do, they're mirroring your own inner critic that refuses to acknowledge your worth. That friend who betrayed your trust, They're revealing where you betray yourself by staying in situations that don't honor you. This isn't about blame or making you responsible for other people's behavior. It's about recognizing that every external experience is providing information about your internal landscape. What appears as opposition from the outside is actually an invitation to evolution from the inside. When you stop seeing these challenging people as enemies and start recognizing them as teachers, everything shifts. You can actually feel gratitude for the irritation they cause, because it's showing you exactly where your edges are, where your wounds are still tender, where your growth is asking to happen. They're not blocking your path. They're illuminating it, pointing directly at the next layer of consciousness that's ready to be integrated and healed. Write, "My challenges are my teachers," in the comments if you're beginning to see the difficult people in your life through this transformative lens. There's a sacred time each day when something extraordinary happens that most people completely overlook, and it might be the most powerful tool for transformation you have access to. Every single night when you fall asleep, you're not just resting your body. You're entering a liminal space where the boundaries between your individual consciousness and universal consciousness become porous and permeable. During those hours of deep sleep, the rigid structures of your waking beliefs soften. The veil between the physical world and the realm of pure potential grows gossamer thin. And in that threshold state, your spirit has direct access to infinite intelligence, communing with forces that can rearrange your entire belief system while your conscious mind is offline. This is why some people wake up with solutions to problems they couldn't solve during waking hours. Why breakthroughs happen. Overnight, that seemed impossible the day before. Why you can go to bed feeling one way about something and wake up with a completely shifted perspective. It's not random. During sleep, your beliefs literally shift like sand in an hourglass, reorganizing themselves according to your soul's highest calling, rather than your mind's limited conditioning. The subconscious work that happens while you sleep is doing more to reshape your reality than almost anything you consciously attempt during the day. But here's what makes this even more powerful. You can consciously work with this process. The last thoughts and feelings you hold as you drift into sleep become the seeds planted in the most fertile soil of your subconscious. If you fall asleep rehearsing your worries, replaying your failures, or scrolling through content that agitates your nervous system, you're programming your subconscious with that frequency for 8 hours. But if you intentionally enter sleep with gratitude, with the feeling of your desires already fulfilled, with trust in the process, you're allowing the alchemy of the night to recalibrate your entire being to match that new frequency. You're partnering with forces that operate beyond your conscious control, letting them do the heavy lifting of transformation while you rest. Now we've arrived at the deepest truth, the one that dissolves every question and ends every search. Are you ready for this? You are not learning to manifest. You never were. Everything you've been studying, every technique you've practiced, every spiritual teaching you've absorbed, none of it has been teaching you how to create reality. It's all been helping you remember what you already are. You are not a student of manifestation. You are the manifester itself, temporarily pretending to have forgotten your own nature. The universe doesn't respond to your desires like some external entity granting wishes. Your desires are how the universe expresses itself through you. When you want something, that's not you wanting. That's consciousness wanting to experience itself in a new way through your unique perspective. You are source consciousness that has so completely immersed itself in the human experience that it genuinely forgot it's the dreamer. You believe you're the character in the dream, struggling to change the plot, when you're actually the one dreaming the entire story into existence. This isn't philosophy or metaphor. This is the literal structure of reality. And the moment this truth lands not just in your mind, but in your entire being, everything changes. You stop trying to manipulate an external universe and recognize yourself as the creative force. You stop begging for what you want and start allowing it to flow through you. You stop seeking and start being. Type, "I remember who I am" in the comments if this recognition is dawning in your awareness right now. If you're still here with me right now, that means something. You didn't just stumble onto this video by accident. There are no accidents, remember? The fact that you stayed through this entire journey, that you allowed these truths to land in your consciousness, that you're still present in this moment, that's significant. You're ready for this level of understanding. You're ready to remember. And if what we explored here resonated with you, if something shifted inside as you listened, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Because this conversation doesn't end here. We go deeper with every video, peeling back more layers of the illusion, remembering more of who we really are. The people who gather here aren't looking for surface-level techniques or quick fixes. They're ready for the real work, the consciousness shift that changes everything. And if that's you, you belong here. Leave a comment right now saying, "I remember who I am, so I know you made it all the way through." I read every single comment, and there's something powerful about declaring this recognition publicly. It anchors it in your reality. It makes it real. And if this video created even a small shift in your awareness, hit that like button. Not for the algorithm, but because your engagement tells me this is what you want more of, and it helps this message reach others who are ready to hear it. There's a video right here that takes what we've explored today even further. It's the perfect next step on this journey. Click and continue with me over there. Let's keep going. Deeper together.